My wife's accident led me to the hospital, where another man was already registered as her husband. When I walked into that room and saw who it was, my entire world collapsed. 2 years of lies. And what he tried to do with my son was the final straw. My name is Nash Turner. I'm 44 years old, and for the past 19 years, I've represented some of the biggest names in professional hockey. When a kid from Saskatchewan dreams of making it to the NHL, when a veteran center needs to negotiate his final contract, when a franchise player wants to secure his legacy, they call me. I've closed deals worth over $200 million in my career. I know how to read people, spot deception, identify leverage points in any negotiation. Or at least I thought I did. Turns out, the skills that made me successful in boardrooms meant nothing when the people deceiving me were the ones I loved most. I married Rebecca Lawson 20 years ago in Boston, right after I landed my first major client, a defensive prospect who'd eventually become a 3-time All-Star. She was 22, working as an event coordinator at the Bruins Arena, where I spent half my life scouting talent and building relationships. I was 24, hungry, and convinced I could conquer the world. She believed in me when nobody else did. Through the lean years when I was barely scraping by, sleeping on a friend's couch between road trips, through the 70-hour weeks when I was building my client roster one meeting at a time, through every triumph and brutal setback, she was there. We built something real. At least, that's what I believed. 2 kids who became the center of our universe. The reason I fought so hard to succeed. Alexis, 16 now, is one of the top competitive swimmers in the state. Regional champion 3 years running, with legitimate Olympic trials on the horizon. The girl's got discipline that would put most professional athletes to shame. 4:30 a.m. practices, 6 days a week, straight A's in school. Mason, 14, plays junior hockey at an elite level with the Boston Thunder program. Scouts from major prep schools have already started circling, making promises about pathways to college programs and beyond. The kid's got my drive and his mother's grace under pressure. Or so I thought. Derek Hamilton entered my life 18 years ago at a sports management conference in New York. Fresh out of Columbia Business School, sharp as hell, and ambitious enough to match my own hunger. We started as competitors, both chasing the same clients in a cutthroat market where relationships meant everything and one wrong move could cost you a career. Then one night over whiskey at a hotel bar, after we'd both lost a prospect to a bigger agency, we realized we were better as partners than adversaries. He became my closest friend, my business confidant, the guy I trusted with everything that mattered in my professional and personal life. Together, we built something extraordinary. While I handled the athlete relationships and contract negotiations, Derek managed the business operations, marketing, and territorial expansion. We opened offices in 5 cities: Boston, New York, Toronto, Chicago, and Detroit. Our roster grew to include 43 professional athletes across hockey, baseball, and football. Last year alone, we cleared $8 million in commissions. The business I'd started in a cramped apartment with nothing but determination and a cell phone had become one of the most respected agencies in sports. 3 weeks ago, I closed the biggest deal of my career, a 7-year, $90 million contract for Connor Hayes, the league's premier goaltender and a client I'd represented since his draft day 8 years earlier. Rebecca threw a celebration dinner at our home in Brookline. Derek was there, raising his glass to toast our success, telling stories that made everyone laugh. My family, my best friend, my perfect life, all gathered under one roof. I had no idea that in 72 hours, I'd discover that everything I thought was real had been a carefully constructed lie. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday night. I was in my home office in Brookline, reviewing contract proposals for a defenseman entering free agency. The kind of work that required complete focus. One misplaced clause could cost a client millions. Rebecca had mentioned something about meeting her book club. The 3rd time that week she'd had evening plans. I'd barely registered it, too buried in work to notice the pattern. My phone lit up at 9:47 p.m. Unknown number. Boston area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. Mr. Turner, a woman's voice asked when I answered. Professional. Careful. This is Massachusetts General Hospital. Your wife was brought in about an hour ago. There's been an accident. The words hit me like a physical blow. What happened? I demanded, already grabbing my keys. How bad is it? She's stable, the nurse said, which should have been reassuring, but somehow wasn't. A car accident on Starr Drive. She's conscious and asking for you. I made the drive to Mass General in 12 minutes, parking illegally and not caring. My mind was racing through worst-case scenarios, imagining injuries, surgeries, life-altering damage. Rebecca was 42 and healthy. This couldn't be serious. It couldn't be. The emergency department was the usual chaos. Fluorescent lights, antiseptic smell, people in various states of crisis. I approached the desk, my heart hammering. "I'm Nash Turner," I told the woman at the reception. My wife Rebecca was brought in. "Car accident." She typed on her computer, frowning slightly. "Rebecca Turner?" "Yes," I said impatiently. "Where is she?" The woman's frown deepened. "Sir, I'm showing that someone's already checked in as her husband. He's with her now in exam room 4. Everything stopped. The noise of the emergency room faded to a distant hum. "What did you just say?" "There's already someone registered as her spouse," she repeated, looking uncomfortable now. "A Mr. Hamilton. He arrived with her in the ambulance." Derek. Derek was here. Derek had come in the ambulance with my wife. Derek was registered as her husband. I didn't ask permission. I walked past the desk, ignoring the nurse calling after me, following the signs to the exam rooms. Room 4. The door was partially open. I stopped in the doorway. Rebecca was on the exam table, a bandage on her forehead, her left arm in a temporary sling. She looked shaken, but not seriously hurt. And sitting in the chair beside her bed, holding her right hand with an intimacy that made my stomach turn, was Derek Hamilton, my best friend, my business partner, the man I trusted with everything. They didn't see me at first. Rebecca was saying something, her voice low and urgent. Derek was leaning close, speaking quietly in response. Then Rebecca's eyes shifted toward the door and met mine. The color drained from her face. "Nash," she breathed. Derek's head snapped around. For one frozen moment, none of us moved. Then Derek stood slowly, releasing Rebecca's hand. "Nash, listen." "Get out," I said. My voice was calm, dangerously calm. "Get the hell away from my wife." "Nash, please," Rebecca said, tears forming. "Let me explain." "How long?" I asked, still in that same cold voice. I looked at Derek. "How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" Derek's face went pale. We didn't." "How long?" I repeated, taking one step into the room. Rebecca started crying. Derek opened his mouth, closed it, then said quietly, 2 years. 2 years. 730 days of lies. Of looking me in the eye, sharing meals at my table, playing with my kids, closing business deals together, all while he was betraying me in the worst possible way. I turned and walked out without another word. Behind me, Rebecca called my name, her voice breaking. I kept walking. Through the emergency room, through the automatic doors, into the parking lot. I got in my car and sat there, hands on the wheel, staring at nothing. My phone started buzzing almost immediately. "Rebecca." I rejected the call. It buzzed again. Rejected. Again. 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 By the time I drove home, she called 33 times. I didn't answer once. The house felt different when I walked in that night. Same furniture, same photos on the walls, same everything, but it all looked like a stage set now. Props in a performance I'd been too stupid to realize I was watching. I went straight to my office and locked the door. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Rebecca. Derek. Rebecca again. Text messages piling up faster than I could ignore them. I turned the phone face down and opened my laptop instead. If there was one thing 20 years of contract negotiations had taught me, it was this: emotion loses, logic wins. And right now, I needed logic more than I'd ever needed anything. I started with the obvious places: bank accounts, credit card statements. Our finances had always been joint. I'd insisted on it, believed in complete transparency. What a joke it seemed now. I pulled up the records for the last 3 years, searching for patterns I'd been too trusting to notice before. There, monthly charges to the Langham Hotel in Boston. Always the same amount. Always on weeknights when I'd been traveling for client meetings. Dinner charges at restaurants I'd never been to, in amounts that suggested 2 people, not one. A separate credit card I didn't recognize, issued 6 months ago under Rebecca's name, with a billing address I didn't know. I kept digging. Cell phone records showed hundreds of calls between Rebecca and Derek, many lasting 30 minutes or more. Text messages I couldn't access without her password, but the metadata told me enough. Late night exchanges, early morning communications, a pattern of contact that went far beyond friendship or even my business partnership with Derek. Around 2 in the morning, I heard the front door open. Rebecca's footsteps in the hallway, slow and hesitant. She tried my office door, found it locked. Nash, she said through the door, her voice hoarse from crying. Please, we need to talk about this. I didn't answer, didn't move, just kept scrolling through the evidence of my own blindness. I know you're in there, she continued. I can see the light under the door. Please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. Let me explain how this happened. How this happened. As if betrayal was something that just occurred, like weather. Not a choice made every single day for 2 years. Nash, I love you, she said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity. What I did with Derek, it doesn't change what we have. What we built together. Our family, our kids, our life. That's real. That matters. I opened the door, so suddenly she stumbled back. You want to know what matters? I asked, my voice cold and level. Alexis has Olympic trials in 8 months. Mason has showcase tournaments that college scouts attend. That matters. You and Derek destroying their family because you couldn't keep your vows? That's not love. That's selfish. It wasn't supposed to be like this, Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. It started as just, we didn't plan it. Derek was there when you were always traveling, and I was lonely, and don't. I cut her off. Don't you dare blame my work. I was building something for this family, for our future. While you were doing what, exactly? Building a future with my best friend. She flinched. Are you going to tell the kids? Eventually. When I decide how. I step back into my office. Right now, I'm going to document every lie you've told. Every dollar you've spent on your affair. Every night you claimed you were somewhere you weren't. And then I'm going to make sure you understand what consequences actually look like. What does that mean? She whispered. It means I'm calling Jordan Keller in the morning. Jordan was the best divorce attorney in Massachusetts, known for dismantling marriages with surgical precision. It means you should probably find yourself a lawyer. A good one. I closed the door in her face and locked it again. Behind the door, I heard her sink to the floor, sobbing. Part of me, a very small part that still remembered who he used to be, wanted to comfort her. The rest of me, the part that was already calculating next moves and strategic positions, felt nothing but cold clarity. My phone lit up again. This time was Derek. I answered. Nash, please. He started immediately. Let me come over. Let me explain. Did you fund Mason's hockey program fees last season? I asked. Silence. Then what? Answer the question. Did you pay the $15,000 for Mason's elite program when I was closing the Anderson deal in Toronto? Yes, Derek admitted. But Nash, I was trying to help. Helping would have been telling me you needed to back away from my wife, I said. Instead, you bought access to my family while you were sleeping with my wife. Do you understand how sociopathic that is? I never wanted to hurt you, Derek said, his voice strained. You already have, I replied. Now I'm going to return the favor. Every client we share, I'm calling them personally. Every business connection you think is yours, I'm reminding them who actually built those relationships. By the end of next week, you're going to understand what it feels like to lose everything that matters. Nash, don't do this. The agency is mine, I said flatly. Check the incorporation papers. Majority ownership. You're a partner in name, but the structure gives me final say on everything. And my final say is you're out. I hung up, blocked his number. Then I started making a list of everyone I needed to call, every move I needed to make, every piece of the life I'd built that needed to be protected from the people who tried to destroy it. By the time the sun came up, I had a plan. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Instead, I sat at my desk, drinking coffee that had gone cold hours ago, building my case the way I'd built my career, methodically, ruthlessly, without mercy. By 7 a.m., I had 3 years of financial records organized, a timeline of Rebecca and Derek's affair documented, and a list of 18 attorneys, consultants, and investigators I needed to contact. Jordan Keller answered on the second ring. Nash Turner, he said, voice rough from sleep. This is either very good news or very bad news, and given the time, I'm guessing bad. How fast can you file divorce papers? I asked. Jordan had been through 2 divorces himself, built a career on understanding betrayal. Give me the overview. I laid it out in 5 minutes. The affair, the hospital revelation, the evidence I'd already compiled. Jordan listened without interrupting, and I could practically hear him calculating strategy. You want to go scorched earth or strategic? He asked when I finished. What's the difference? Scorched earth means we make this public, painful, and expensive for everyone involved, Jordan explained. We drag out every detail in court, maximize her humiliation, Use the kids as leverage. Strategic means we move fast, hit hard where it counts legally, and minimize collateral damage to your children. I thought of Alexis, 16, and swimming 6 days a week with Olympic dreams. Mason, 14, and finally finding his confidence on the ice. Strategic. But I want full custody, and I want it ironclad. Infidelity alone won't get you full custody in Massachusetts, Jordan said. We need more. Financial impropriety, endangerment, pattern of neglect. I've got the financial impropriety. I interrupted. Unknown credit card, separate bank account, hotel charges. All funded by withdrawals from our joint accounts without my knowledge. That's a start. What else? I pulled up the calendar I'd been reconstructing. She's missed 17 of Alexis's swim meets in the past 2 years. Missed 9 of Mason's games. School conferences, parent-teacher meetings, medical appointments. Derek was more present in their lives than she was these past 6 months. Can you prove that? School attendance logs, meet registries, medical office records. I confirmed. I've already started collecting them. Jordan was quiet for a moment. Then, you've been busy. How are you holding up? I'm functional, I said, which wasn't really an answer. Can we win this? With what you're telling me? Yes. But Nash, it's going to get ugly. She'll fight back, claim you were an absent workaholic, probably paint Derek as an emotional support system you failed to provide. Are you prepared for that? What I'm prepared for, I said carefully, is making sure my kids understand that their mother made choices. Deliberate, repeated choices. I won't let her rewrite this as some story about a neglected wife. Fair enough. I'll have papers drawn up by end of business today, Jordan said. One more thing. Your business partnership with this Derek character. That's going to be complicated. Already handled. I'm majority owner. The agreement gives me unilateral authority to remove partners, and I documented his breach of fiduciary duty last night. He used company resources and time for personal affairs, literally. He's done. You work fast when you're motivated. I'm highly motivated. After hanging up with Jordan, I called my office manager, Patricia. She'd been with me since the beginning, knew every detail of how the agency operated. Patricia, I need you to do something for me and not ask questions. How bad is it? She asked immediately. Bad enough that Derek Hamilton will no longer be part of this agency effective today. I need you to change all system passwords, revoke his access to client files, and prepare a notification for our entire roster that he's no longer authorized to represent them or speak on behalf of Turner Sports Management. Nash, what happened? He violated the trust of this company, I said, which was technically true. I'll explain more later, but right now I need you to lock him out of everything. Can you do that? Give me 2 hours, Patricia said. What about his clients? Every client he brought in came through my connections initially, I said. I'll be calling each of them personally to explain the transition and assure them of continued representation. This is about Rebecca, isn't it? Patricia asked quietly. I closed my eyes. How long have you known? I didn't know for certain until this moment, she admitted. But I suspected. Small things. The way she called looking for you when Derek had just said you were traveling. How they'd both be unavailable at the same times. I'm sorry, Nash. I should have said something. No, I said. That wasn't your responsibility. Just tell me now. Whatever you need. By 9 a.m., Derek was locked out of every system. By 10, I'd spoken to 12 of our top clients, reassuring them of business continuity and subtly suggesting that Derek's departure was for ethical reasons without specifying details. By 11, Rebecca had left 4 more messages that I hadn't listened to. At noon, my daughter called. Dad, Alexis's voice was tight. Why is Mom crying in her room? What's going on? This was the moment I'd been dreading. Come home after practice. I told her. Bring your brother. We need to have a family meeting. Dad, you're scaring me. I know, sweetheart. But I need you to trust me, okay? Just come home. We'll talk then. She hesitated. Is this about you and Mom? Smart kid. Too smart to lie to. Yes, I admitted. But we'll discuss it together, all of us. I promise. When she hung up, I stood in my office window, looking out at the life I'd built in Brookline. Big house in a good neighborhood. Successful business. Beautiful family. Or what had appeared to be a beautiful family. The facade had fallen away, revealing something rotten underneath. My phone buzzed. A text from Jordan. Papers ready. Me at my office at 3. I texted back. See you then. 3 more hours before I made it official. 3 more hours before everything changed irreversibly. I spent them preparing what I'd say to my kids, how I'd explain that their mother had betrayed us all, how I convinced them that we'd survive this intact. Because we would survive. I make damn sure of that. Alexis arrived home first, still in her practice suit with a jacket thrown over it. Her hair was pulled back tight, chlorine smell mixing with anxiety as she walked into the living room where I'd been waiting. Mason came in 15 minutes later, hockey bag slung over his shoulder, confusion written all over his face. "Where's Mom?" Alexis asked, looking around. "Upstairs," I said. "She'll stay there for now. This conversation is between us first." Mason dropped into a chair. "Dad, what's going on? You're freaking us out." I'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times, but now that it was here, the words felt inadequate. How do you tell your kids that their family is broken? That the two people who were supposed to show them what commitment looks like had failed spectacularly? "Your mother and I are getting divorced," I said directly. No point softening it. "I filed papers this afternoon." Alexis's face went white. Mason just stared at me, mouth slightly open. "But why?" Alexis whispered. "You guys seem fine. You don't even fight that much." "We weren't fine," I said. "Your mother has been having an affair. For 2 years. With Derek Hamilton." The silence that followed was crushing. Alexis looked like I'd slapped her. Mason's hands clenched into fists. "Uncle Derek," Mason finally said, his voice breaking. "That's not. Dad, that can't be true. I wish it wasn't," I told him. "But last night your mother was in a car accident. When I got to the hospital, Derek was there, registered as her husband. That's how I found out." Alexis started crying, quiet tears streaming down her face. "How long have you known?" "Since last night. I spent today gathering evidence, talking to lawyers, making sure we're protected legally and financially." "Does Derek have kids?" Mason asked suddenly, his voice hard. "Does his wife know?" "Derek isn't married," I said. "Never has been. It was just him and your mother, lying to all of us." "I can't believe this," Alexis said, wiping her eyes roughly. "How could she do this? How could he? He's been at every single one of my meets this season. He bought Mason that custom stick for Christmas. He was family. He pretended to be family," I corrected, "while betraying it. That's who he really is." Mason stood up abruptly. "I want to talk to Mom." "Not yet," I said firmly. "Right now, you both need time to process this. Your mother will have her chance to explain, but she doesn't get to spin this into some story that makes it acceptable. What she did was wrong. Period." "What happens now?" Alexis asked, her voice small. "Where are we going to live? What about my training? Mason's hockey. Nothing changes for you too," I assured her. "You stay here with me. Your training continues exactly as planned. Mason's program stays funded. Your lives stay stable. The only things changing are the adults who failed you." "Does the whole agency know?" Mason asked. "Are people talking about it?" "Some people know Derek is out," I said. "They don't even know why. That's nobody's business but ours. If anyone asks you anything, you tell them it's a private family matter and walk away." "Understood." Both kids nodded, but Alexis was still crying. "I should have seen something. There must have been signs." "This isn't on you," I said sharply. "Neither of you had any obligation to police your mother's behavior. She's the adult. She made choices. Don't you dare take responsibility for her failures." Mason looked at me with an expression far older than 14. "Are you okay, Dad?" The question caught me off guard. Was I okay? No. I was functioning, operating, executing a plan, but okay? That was a different question entirely. "I will be," I said, which was probably the most honest answer I could give. "And so will you too. We're going to get through this together." 2 days after I told the kids, Mason came to my office with his phone in his hand and fury in his eyes. "Derek's been texting me," he said without preamble. "Wants to meet up, explain his side, says you're not being fair to him." I looked up from the contract I'd been reviewing. "Show me." Mason handed over his phone. The messages were exactly what I expected. Manipulative, self-pitying, positioning Derek as the victim of circumstances rather than the architect of betrayal. "Your dad isn't telling you everything. There are 2 sides to every story. I care about you guys. Always have. Can we talk?" "What do you want to do?" I asked, handing the phone back. "I want to tell him to go to hell," Mason said. "But I also want to hear what excuse he thinks is good enough for this." "Then meet with him," I said, surprising him. "Your choice." "But Mason, whatever he tells you, remember this. Adults who make good choices don't need to explain them. They speak for themselves. If Derek needs an hour to justify what he did, that should tell you everything." Mason studied me. "You're really okay with me meeting him?" "I trust your judgment," I said. "You're smart enough to see through whatever story he's selling. But I want you to do one thing for me." "What?" "Record the conversation on your phone. Not to use against him necessarily, but so you have an accurate record of what was actually said. Memory gets fuzzy. Audio doesn't lie. Mason nodded slowly. That's pretty cold, Dad. I'm learning to be, I admitted. The meeting happened 2 days later at a coffee shop near Boston Commons. Mason recorded everything, just like I'd suggested. When he came home that afternoon, his jaw was set tight, and his eyes looked older. He cried. Mason said, sitting across from me, actual tears, said he never meant to hurt anyone, that he and Mom just connected on a level you two never had. Said love isn't something you can control. What did you say? I asked him if he loved us too. Me and Alexis. If watching us grow up, being part of our lives, if that mattered at all. Mason's voice was steady but cold. Know what he said? I waited. He said we'd always be important to him, that he hoped someday we could understand, that adults make complicated choices that kids can't always comprehend. Mason looked at me. So, I told him I comprehended just fine, that he's a coward who destroyed my family because he wanted something that wasn't his. Then I left. Pride swelled in my chest. That took guts. I also told him if he ever contacts me or Alexis again, I'm blocking his number, and he can explain to a judge why he's harassing minors. Mason managed a grim smile. Learn that from you. Documentation. Evidence. Always protect yourself. Smart kid. Derek asked about you. Mason added. Wanted to know if you were planning to destroy his reputation completely, or if there was room for negotiation. What did you tell him? That you don't negotiate with people who betray you. That you finish what you start. Mason paused. Was I right? I thought about the calls I'd made, the clients I'd redirected, the quiet conversations with industry contacts that would ensure Derek Hamilton's career in sports management was effectively over. Not through malice, but through simple truth. He'd violated trust at the most fundamental level, and word traveled fast in small industries. You were right. I confirmed. I finished what I start. The DNA test results arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, delivered in a plain white envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I'd ordered the test 3 days after discovering the affair, driven by a paranoid need to verify everything I thought I knew. If Rebecca could lie about Derek for 2 years, what else had she lied about? I sat in my office, the envelope unopened on my desk, staring at it like it might detonate. Mason was 14. I'd been there for his birth, cut the umbilical cord, held him when he was minutes old. I'd taught him to skate, watched him develop into the player he was today, saw myself reflected in his determination and competitive fire. But what if biology said otherwise? I tore open the envelope. The lab report was clinical, precise, mathematical. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. Mason was mine. Genetically, unquestionably mine. The relief was physical, like someone had lifted a concrete block off my chest. I sat back in my chair, eyes closed, breathing through the realization of how badly I'd needed that confirmation. Not because I'd love Mason any less. I knew that much about myself, but because I needed to know Rebecca hadn't taken that from me too. Alexis's results were in a second envelope. I'd tested her as well, needed complete certainty. Same result, 99.98% probability of paternity. Both kids were biologically mine. The family I thought I had was real in at least that fundamental way. I was still processing when my phone rang. Jordan Keller, my attorney. Nash, he said without preamble. We got a problem. Rebecca's lawyer just filed a motion claiming you've been financially controlling throughout the marriage, that she had no access to independent funds, and that you're using your wealth and connections to intimidate her into an unfair settlement. I almost laughed. She had full access to every account. Joint credit cards, joint checking, joint savings. I never restricted anything. Can you prove she had access? Bank records show her making withdrawals and charges constantly, including the charges she made to fund her affair with Derek. Good. We'll need that documentation. But Nash, there's something else. She's claiming Derek was providing her emotional support that you failed to give. That your constant travel and focus on work left her isolated and vulnerable. So she's making me the villain, I said flatly. Classic move. The neglectful husband who drove his wife into another man's arms. Essentially, yes. How do you want to respond? With facts, I said. I travel for work, yes. To build a business that provided a 7-figure annual income for our family. While I was working, Rebecca chose to spend her time with Derek instead of with our children. We have documented evidence of missed events, absent parenting, prioritization of her affair over her kids. Let her try to spin that as my fault. After hanging up with Jordan, I called Mason and Alexis into my office. They came in together, and I could see the anxiety in their faces. Every time I called a family meeting now, they brace for bad news. I need to tell you something, I said. After I found out about your mother's affair, I had DNA tests done. For both of you. Alexis's hand flew to her mouth. Mason went very still. The results came back today. I continued. You're both mine. Biologically, genetically, unquestionably mine. I'm telling you this because I don't want you hearing it somewhere else. And because I want you to know that even when I was questioning everything else, I never questioned that you're my children. Biology just confirmed what I already knew in every way that matters. Did you think we weren't? Mason asked quietly. I needed to verify everything. I admitted. Your mother's betrayal made me doubt my own judgment. I had to know for certain. Alexis was crying again. She'd been doing a lot of that lately. Does Mom know you tested us? Not yet, but she will. It'll come out in the divorce proceedings. She's going to lose it, Mason predicted. Probably, but that's not your problem to manage. Your job is to keep swimming, keep playing hockey, keep being the incredible kids you've always been. My job is to handle the adults and their consequences. Mason stood up. Dad, I need to tell you something. Derek offered me money. I looked up sharply. What? Before I told him off at the coffee shop. He said if I could convince you to back off legally, to settle the divorce quietly, and let him stay in the agency, he'd pay for my entire junior hockey program. Next 3 years. All expenses, plus connections to college scouts. My hands clenched. When were you planning to tell me this? I'm telling you now. I turned him down, told him to shove his money. But Dad, he was trying to buy me. Use me as leverage against you. I felt rage building, cold and precise. Derek wasn't just content with destroying my marriage. He wanted to use my son as a bargaining chip. That crossed a line I hadn't even known existed. Thank you for telling me, I said, keeping my voice level. And thank you for having the integrity to refuse him. Learned it from you, Mason said simply. After they left, I called Jordan back. Add attempted bribery of a minor to our documentation. Derek Hamilton just made this personal in a whole new way. 2 weeks into the divorce proceedings, I got a call from an unexpected source. Trevor Hutchins, CEO of Paramount Sports Group, the largest sports management agency on the East Coast. We'd competed for clients over the years, maintained professional respect, but never friendship. Nash, Trevor said when I answered. I heard about your situation. Derek Hamilton's departure from your agency. I wanted to reach out personally. I'm listening, I said cautiously. I'm prepared to make you an offer. Senior Vice President position at Paramount. Base salary of $800,000 plus performance bonuses that could double that. You bring your client roster, your reputation, your expertise. We provide infrastructure, resources, and a clean break from everything associated with your former partner. $800,000, more than I was currently making, with none of the overhead or liability. It was a lifeline, professionally and financially. A way to completely separate from Derek, to rebuild under a different banner. What about my current agency? I asked. Sell it, dissolve it, or let it collapse. I don't care about the structure, Nash. I care about you. You're one of the best negotiators in the business, and you're currently in a position where starting fresh might be appealing. He wasn't wrong. Every time I walked into my Boston office, I saw Derek's empty workspace, remembered the partnership we'd built, felt the sting of betrayal. Maybe a clean break was exactly what I needed. I need time to think about it, I said. Of course. But Nash, this offer expires in 2 weeks. I've got other candidates if you pass. After hanging up, I sat with the decision. Taking Trevor's offer meant admitting Derek had damaged my agency beyond repair. It meant abandoning something I'd built from nothing, letting the betrayal win in at least one arena. But it also meant financial security, career stability, and distance from the wreckage of my marriage. I called Alexis and Mason into my office that evening. I need your input on something, I said, which surprised them. I've been making all the decisions lately without consultation. I've been offered a job at Paramount Sports Group, I explained. Significant pay increase, better resources, chance to start fresh. But it means closing down my agency. What I built with Derek. Everything I've worked for the past 18 years. Would we have to move? Alexis asked immediately, always practical. No. Paramount's Boston office is downtown. Same city, same house, same schools. Mason leaned forward. Do you want to take it? Honest question. Deserve an honest answer. Part of me wants to prove I can rebuild my agency without Derek. That his betrayal didn't destroy what I created. But another part knows that every day I walk into that office, I'm reminded of his lies. Maybe starting fresh isn't weakness. Maybe it's strategy. Take the job, Dad, Alexis said firmly. You've already proven you can build something from nothing. You don't need to prove it again. And we need you stable, focused, not fighting ghosts. Mason nodded agreement. Plus, 800,000. That's not nothing. My hockey program costs a fortune. I smiled slightly. Always thinking practically, you too. Learned it from you. Alexis echoed her brother's earlier words. The next morning, I called Trevor Hutchins. I accept your offer. When do you need me to start? 30 days, Trevor said. That give you enough time to transition clients and close out your current obligations. More than enough. After ending the call, I felt something unfamiliar. Not quite peace, but something adjacent to it. For momentum. A path that led somewhere other than endless litigation and bitter memory. Derek had taken my wife, my best friend status, and temporarily my faith in my own judgment. But he hadn't taken my talent, my reputation, or my ability to rebuild. In the end, maybe that was the real victory. 8 months after the divorce was finalized, I stood poolside at the Olympic trials in Indianapolis, watching Alexis prepare for the most important race of her young life. The 200-meter freestyle finals. Top 2 finishers made the Olympic team. 3rd place went home. She'd trained relentlessly since the family fell apart, channeling her pain into perfection in the water. 4:30 a.m. practices without complaint. Extra sessions with her coach. Nutritional discipline that impressed even me. The girl had transformed grief into fuel. Rebecca was there, somewhere in the stands. We'd agreed she could attend major events, but separately, with no interaction unless the kids initiated it. Alexis had been clear. Her mother could watch, but not celebrate. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Derek, thankfully, was nowhere to be seen. His career in sports management had collapsed exactly as I predicted. No clients would touch him after word spread about the affair. Last I'd heard, he was working in pharmaceutical sales somewhere in Connecticut, as far from Boston as he could manage while staying on the East Coast. Dad, Mason said beside me, pulling me from my thoughts. She's up next. Alexis stood behind the starting block, shaking out her arms, her face a mask of concentration. She looked so much like Rebecca at that age, it physically hurt sometimes. But the steel in her spine, the refusal to quit, that was all mine. The starter's signal sounded. 8 swimmers launched into the water. Alexis's dive was perfect, her underwater kick powerful and precise. She surfaced in 3rd place, began her stroke, and I could see the years of training in every movement. By the 100-meter turn, she'd moved to 2nd. By 150, she was neck and neck with the leader. The final 50 meters felt like they lasted an hour. Alexis dug deep, found something extra, and touched the wall. 2nd place by 0.03 of a second. She'd made the Olympic team. Mason was screaming beside me, jumping up and down. I stood frozen, watching Alexis surface and see her time, watching the realization hit her face. She'd done it. Despite everything our family had been through, despite the pain and betrayal and chaos, she'd achieved her dream. When she climbed out of the pool, she looked directly at me, not at Rebecca somewhere in the stands. At me, the parent who'd been there every step of the way. I met her at the athlete exit, and she collapsed into my arms, sobbing with relief and joy and exhaustion. I did it, Dad, she whispered. I actually did it. Never doubted you for a second. I told her, and meant it. Later that evening, back at the hotel, Rebecca tried to approach us in the lobby. Alexis saw her coming and physically stepped closer to me, a clear signal of whose side she'd chosen. Alexis, Rebecca started, tears already forming. I'm so proud of you. You were incredible today. Thank you, Alexis said politely but coldly. I need to go rest now. Big day tomorrow. Rebecca looked at me, desperation in her eyes. Nash, please. She's my daughter too. Can't we? She made the Olympic team. I interrupted. That's what matters today. Everything else is background noise. We walked away, leaving Rebecca standing alone in the lobby. Mason glanced back once, then kept walking. The kids had made their choices, drawn their boundaries. I'd supported those decisions without pushing them. Their relationship with their mother was theirs to define. That night, as Alexis posted photos on social media, her on the podium, her official Team USA gear, her Olympic credential, I noticed Rebecca's name wasn't tagged. Derek's definitely wasn't. Just me, Mason, and her coach. The people who'd earned their place in her moment. Dad, Alexis said, looking up from her phone. Thank you for not falling apart when everything else did. for being the constant. That's what fathers do, I said simply. We show up. We stay. We don't quit. She smiled, and for the first time in 8 months, it reached her eyes completely. I learned from the best. 10 months after discovering Rebecca's affair, I sat in my new office at Paramount Sports Group, reviewing contract proposals for 3 potential Olympic athletes who wanted representation. The view from the 32nd floor showed all of Boston spread out below me, a city I'd conquered once and was conquering again, this time on my own terms. My phone buzzed. A text from Mason, committed to Boston University. Full ride. Coach says I'm projected for the NHL draft junior year. Pride swelled in my chest. My son, choosing a path that kept him close to home, that let me watch him develop into the player I always knew he could be. BU's hockey program was elite. Their coach was legendary, and Mason had earned every bit of that scholarship through relentless work. I texted back, proud of you. Dinner tonight to celebrate? His response was immediate. Yeah. Lexi's flying in from training camp too. Family dinner. Family. The word meant something different now. Smaller, perhaps, but infinitely more solid. No more lies. No more betrayal. No more wondering if the people at my table actually wanted to be there. The divorce had been finalized 3 months ago. Rebecca got a settlement that was fair, but not generous. Jordan had made sure of that. The evidence of her affair, the financial impropriety, the pattern of neglect toward the children had all worked in my favor. She'd walked away with enough to live comfortably, but not enough to fund the lifestyle she'd envisioned with Derek. Derek himself had declared bankruptcy 2 months ago. Turns out, without clients or income, maintaining his previous lifestyle became impossible. The offshore accounts I'd helped expose in Discovery had been seized. The reputation he'd spent 20 years building had evaporated. He tried to reach out once, sent me an email with a subject line, "Can we talk?" I deleted it without reading past the first line. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ash. My client roster at Paramount had grown to 62 athletes, including 8 Olympians and 12 active NHL players. Trevor Hutchins had been right. The move here had been strategic gold. I had resources now I'd never had in my smaller agency, support staff that free me to focus on negotiations, and zero emotional baggage tied to the building. Patricia, my former office manager, had come with me to Paramount. She'd been the first person I'd called when Trevor made the offer, asking if she'd considered jumping ship. Her answer had been immediate. I work for you, Nash. Not for a building. Where you go, I go. That kind of loyalty meant everything now. At 6 p.m., I met Mason and Alexis at our favorite steakhouse in Brookline, the same place we'd celebrated when I'd closed the Connor Hayes deal a lifetime ago. Alexis was tanned from outdoor training sessions in California. Her Olympic medal, bronze in the 200 freestyle, hanging from her rearview mirror in her car. Mason was bigger, broader, carrying himself with the confidence of an athlete who knew exactly where he was headed. To new beginnings, I said, raising my glass. To family, Alexis corrected, raising hers. To Dad, Mason added, for showing us what it looks like to take a hit and come back stronger. We clinked glasses, and I looked at my children, both thriving, both resilient, both proof that good parenting could overcome almost anything. They'd been tested by circumstances no kid should face, and they'd emerged with integrity intact. Rebecca had texted me that morning, asking if she could attend Mason's commitment ceremony at BU. I'd forwarded the message to Mason without comment, letting him decide. His response had been measured. She can come, but she sits separately, and she doesn't get to pretend she was part of this. That was growth, not forgiveness, necessarily, but acknowledgement that she existed, that maybe, eventually, there could be some form of relationship rebuilt, on his terms, in his time. As for me, I'd started dating again. Nothing serious yet, just dinners with a woman I'd met through work, a sports psychologist who consulted with Olympic teams. She knew my story, had no illusions about where I was emotionally, and respected the boundaries I'd set around my kids and my healing. Life wasn't perfect. I still had moments where the betrayal hit me fresh, where I wondered what I'd missed, what I could have done differently. But those moments were getting shorter, less frequent, easier to move past. Dad, Alexis said, pulling me back to the present. You zoned out. Just thinking, I said, about how far we've come. We're okay, aren't we? Mason asked, something vulnerable in his voice. Like actually okay? I looked at both of them, these remarkable young people who'd survived their parents' failures and emerged stronger. Yeah, I said, we're actually okay. Better than okay. We're solid. And we were. Not the family I'd planned, not the life I'd envisioned, but something real, something tested, something that had survived fire and come out tempered steel. That was more than enough. It was everything that mattered.